This is my 2005 GMC Yukon, and today we're going to do the 2019 to 2023 big brake upgrade for the NBS style GMT800 trucks. This upgrade gives you 4 piston calipers and a 1-inch larger rotor in the front. Increases your stopping power, gives you a little bit more confidence on the road. I've been having some issues with my front brakes, so this was a prime opportunity to do this upgrade. It's not that expensive. It's all OEM parts, just using some clever tricks that some people have figured out, using a few spacers and getting everything lined up. I'm also going to be upgrading the brake lines to Stoptech stainless steel braided lines. It's a super easy, straightforward job, really fun. A few things up front I should recommend. You can only do this upgrade if you have 17-inch wheels or larger. It will not fit on anything smaller than a 17. And most importantly, you need enough room for 17 millimeters additional space for the larger caliper. I got lucky with my set of rims. I have a set of fuel off-road wheels. The offset on them is plenty of clearance. There's a 1/4 inch of clearance to the caliper from the back of the wheel. So what I recommend doing is, if you're going to do this upgrade, take a few measurements from the disc out to the furthest innermost point on the upper part of the caliper. Or what I did was pulled the old brakes off on my driver's side, put the rotor in, put the new rotor in, put the new caliper on, bolted everything down. You don't have to torque it, but bolt everything down so that it fits and it's in its proper place. And then put your wheel on, and then make sure it spins freely without touching the caliper. Some people run into clearance issues with the caliper to the back of their wheels. They have to either run a spacer or they grind down certain parts of the calipers. I would recommend just running a spacer to push your wheel a little bit further out. Some people run a 5 or even a 10 mil spacer, but get a hub-centric 5 mil spacer if your wheels don't properly fit. I got lucky, but it's a really straightforward job, and let's get at it. Okay, so before I started filming, I backed off all the lug nuts on my passenger side wheel. I'm gonna do the passenger side on camera, show you guys everything, and then everything's just duplicated on the driver's side. So you'll only be seeing one version of this, so I don't bore you folks with duplicating all of the same work. So all the lug nuts are off, the truck is jacked up, it's sitting on jack stands on either side, and the jack is back in place just to make sure that we're extra safe here. So get the wheel off, and then you can start pulling off all the old brake equipment. And a lot of people recommend just leaving your wheel behind your jack stands just in case something happens. Gives you a little extra safety buffer. Okay, there's all the old equipment exposed. Now what I recommend you do is turn it so that you can get access to all the hardware in the back. It makes it easier to get your tools in there, and you're going to be backing off all of the equipment that's in here. So it just gives you a lot more access for getting in there and working on everything. So the next step is you want to get off your old caliper and your old rotor. So what we're going to do is there's an 18 mil bolt at the top and an 18 mil bolt at the bottom, and you pull that off, the whole caliper will swing away. So these are the 2 bolts you need to undo. There's an 18 mil right here, and there's an 18 mil right here. And you want to make sure you just hit them with a little penetrant and just back them off. These are very high torque, so you probably need a breaker bar to get this one and this one off. And then once you can get it off, you can buzz it off with your impact. So yeah, it's this one up here and this one down here, and it's an 18 mil. So I just hit the 2 18 mil nuts and the banjo bolts and the fitting up here at the top where the rubber brake line is connected. I will be replacing this rubber brake line here with a stainless steel one from Stoptech. Just giving everything a little bit of penetrating oil just so that when I go to pull all this stuff off, it doesn't give me any hard times. I don't know how long it's been since some of this stuff has been removed, so it'll be good to just give it a little blast. And we'll go from there. So let that penetrating oil just soak in for a minute, then we'll come back, we'll knock everything off here. So one thing I like to do just to stop the brake lines from just constantly dripping is to take a pair of vice grips and just find a clear piece of the old rubber brake line and just clamp it. I'm not worried about these brake lines because they're being replaced with stainless Stoptechs. So I'm just gonna pinch this off, and that just stops the flow a bit, helps stop the flow. When I back the banjo bolt off, it's not gonna drain as much. Okay, the banjo bolt's an 11 mil, and you're just gonna back it off. It will bleed some brake fluid, but just put something underneath it to catch it, and you should be good. not even bleeding much brake fluid. I'm just gonna pull this off, bracket off up here. Of course, it's a different size. So the banjo bolt's an 11, but I think all the hardware that holds it on, looks like it's 10. Yep. So there's a bracket up top that holds the brake cable, and then there's another one on the upper control arm that holds the brake cable in place. Just back those all off, and that gets the brake cable out of the way. Watch out for your ABS cable when you're navigating these areas. There you go. So that's the old brake line. Free and clear out of the way. Just leave your tray under it because it will grip a bit. What's great is you get these cafeteria trays off Amazon. They're dirt cheap. They're like $2 each. Just put them underneath and it catches all drips, and then you can just pour it off the corner into your jug or whatever when you're done. Okay, I backed the two 18 mil bolts off on the back with the breaker bar, and now I'm going to just whiz them off with the old ratchet. So yeah, let's bust these off. Okay, just like that. So there's your caliper bolt. You're gonna want to clean these threads up because you can reuse these. These aren't a one-time use, you can reuse these. So I'm just gonna take a wire wheel to this, clean all the threads, and then put on some fresh Loctite. So, caliper's bleeding a little. That's to be expected. Okay, got the caliper bolt. Make sure you don't lose these. You got running boards. It's a great place to temporarily store the stuff. Okay, so there's the old rotor. That is gonna go bye-bye. Okay, so now what you want to do, you want to take a wire wheel to these mount points here and just clear out any rust, and then if you have a wire brush, just stick it through the bolt holes, and then just give everything a little shot of brake clean, give it a wipe down while you're here, check for any other damage while you're in back here, check your boots on your CVs, look for anything else that's kind of broken or worn, and then we'll go from there. Make sure your ABS cable doesn't get damaged, you don't want to mess with that, and then yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, you just want to give this point here and this point here a little love with the wire wheel, and hit the back as well. I just want to clear the mating surface, make sure there's no rust or anything, and then you want to put a little anti-seize on the front face of your hub, and then when you put your wheels back on, just give your studs a little love with the anti-seize as well. So I'm just going to clean this up, and then we'll get to putting the new parts on.
Also, wear a mask doing this. This is some bad stuff. Rust, dust, brake dust, it's all bad. Safety first.
That's good. Got all the surface rust off the mounting points for the caliper. Now I'm just going to give everything a quick blast with brake clean. Incoming. Pro Series stuff is like a freaking fire hydrant. Not exactly what size this nut is up here, but I'm going to just use a crescent wrench. Off. It's always nice to hit a couple things. Hit these things with penetrating oil, or you know, PB blast or something like that, just to loosen them up enough to start working them off. And brake fluid is a little acidic. Not acidic, but it's just not, you don't really want it to drip. So there's a CV boot right below this. So just maybe put a little paper towel in there and then just catch some drips. That will inevitably happen. You will lose brake fluid, but not a catastrophic amount. And the faster you do this part, the less brake fluid you lose. So just jam a bunch of paper towel in there. Let's back this nut off. It should get to the point where you can do it by hand. Almost there. It's hard lines here. Be a little tricky sometimes. So get the lines fully back off. Yeah, just leave it still in the old rubber line. Now I'm thinking I gotta pull this bracket off here. Okay, so we've got the old brake line out. I've just pulled the retaining clip for the brake line right here. That pulled out. And then this should, if I'm not mistaken, is just friction fit in here. Just give it a whack. There it goes. That pops that out. So you pop that out of there. It's literally just friction fit. I think there's a keyway on the old one. Fits it in there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the new Stoptech. These are universal. It doesn't matter which side they go on. And then you just push this through there. So there's a round side and a narrower flat side. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So that's how that's supposed to look. So these swivel. So that is now properly retained. So now I put the hard line into there and then I bolt that back into the truck. Okay, so now we kind of have to move quick. We gotta tighten up the hard line. Kit includes new banjo bolts, new crush washers, and these are mounts to attach to the control arm and the knuckle to hold the new brake lines. You're getting rid of the old, you don't use any of the old brackets that are on the old line. So yeah, they've got these little brackets that mount onto the factory positions, and I believe you just use the factory hardware that came off of them. And then you just mount the cables in there, or the brake lines in there, and it keeps them fresh and clean out of the way. Okay, I've roughly attached the brackets that came with the Stoptech kit for the new stainless steel lines. At this point, we can start putting the new equipment on. So that's a very exciting step in the process. I'm using some VHT satin black caliper paint to give the calipers a bit of a protection, and then I'm going to throw the VHT clear coat over top of these. Both of these are able to get at my local auto parts store. I'm in Canada, so I got these at Canadian Tire, but I'm sure any auto parts store in the States, O'Reilly's, anywhere else in the world. These are the combinations of the products I'm using to paint the calipers. You're just letting the calipers tack up finally. VHT needs about an hour after your last coat so you can touch them, and about 3 hours so you can fully handle them. So we're just letting these dry out. As you can see, there's a substantial size difference from the GMT800 size factory Yukon front rotors. These are slotted and drilled ones. These are the original size ones that came on them to the upgraded 2020 Silverado 1500 rotors. These both have the same bolt pattern. My hubs actually have the screw, but I don't have the screw because these rotors never had it. So if I wanted to, I could actually have that mounting screw. I'm gonna order that and put them back on the next time I check my wheels. So yeah, noticeable size difference. Okay, while I'm waiting for my calipers to dry, I'm just gonna hit my hubs with a little bit of anti-seize and then give the threads some love as well. Cut some of the Permatex silver anti-seize. Sometimes it comes in copper, this one is the silver. And I'm just gonna hit the mating surface of the hub there and then the studs for the wheels. And just hit the studs a little bit. Just helps keep them rust free. Obviously don't put too much on them. We can torque them down in a bit. So when we do this, we just put a bit of anti-seize on the plugs. There we go. Okay, the key that makes all these work is using 1/2 inch internal diameter washers, flat washers. I'm in Canada, so I went to Home Depot and I got these ones. I know in the States they've got their names slightly differently. I'll put the link down below for what these are, but you need 3 of these washers on each caliper bolt. I just gave the back side of the new rotor a wipe down because once that's on, it's a lot harder to access. And then when I have the rotors on I will do the front side, the street side, with some brake clean. Okay, now this is when it starts really coming together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the new rotor on and then get the new caliper in place, bolt everything down, Then once that's all bolted down and torqued down, then you can drop the pads in and it's pretty much done. So let's get the new rotor on and then we'll start getting the new caliper on. These are considerably bigger than the factory ones that came on my Yukon. Boom. Sometimes to help, like just wind on the bottom lug nut, just to keep it on and help when getting the caliper in. Just get that nice and snug. Hand tight's fine for now, and then I'll put one kind of not right directly at the top, just because you don't want anything getting in the way of the caliper. You can just put these on by hand to start and torque them down. And the job's done. Get to the exciting part where you start to see the kit come together. Okay, so now this is where it gets really fun. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go get our caliper and we're gonna get we've got our caliper bolts. And we're gonna take 3 of these flat washers. I'll mention the link in the part in below, and you want to stack each one on the inside of the knuckle so that it spaces the caliper out properly. Okay, just gonna give the rotor a quick clean up on the front side. Just make sure nothing left over from the factory. Make sure that the new pads have a fighting chance of a good life. Just cleans any crap or grease off that may be on these things for machining. Great thing about brake clean is that it dries really quick. Make sure that the bleeder screw, which is right there, on these calipers is in the up position. So you want to make sure that is facing up, because you will not be able to bleed your brakes properly otherwise. As you can see, bleeder screw goes up. So we're gonna get the first caliper bolt on. So as you see, you got the caliper bolt in place with the 3 washers ready to go. We'll get the top one in first, and what I may do is actually prep the bottom one as well, just so that I can get them both in one shot. I also recommend leaving the travel plug in for the band where the brake line fitting goes. Just leave it in until you're literally ready to put the brake line on, and then it won't let anything get into the caliper. So again, taking your 3 washers, you're going to just hang those just off of the ends of the caliper bolts, just poked enough through so that you can get all 3 washers on. And then, here comes the exciting point. I'm going to get the caliper ready to drop into place. You don't put the pads on first like you do with the older style brakes. Okay, so those aren't torqued yet, but what you want is even spacing on either side of the rotor. So I can show you where those two sets of washers went in. One right there, 3 washers in there, between the knuckle and the caliper. Then the other set of washers is right there. Okay, I'm going to torque down the 2 caliper bolts to 121 foot-pounds. Okay, those are torqued down to 121 foot-pounds. Okay, so I've got the 2 crush washers and the banjo bolt that was provided with the Stoptech kit. We're going to get the caliper hooked up, and then we'll torque this down. Put one on the top, one on the bottom. So you put one on first. Make sure it's clear of the little port there. And then get the brake line in an orientation that it makes sense. These things have a natural curve to them. Through. unthreaded. There we go. Okay, so we have the new calipers on. As you can see, the spacing is very even. The rotor is right dead center of the caliper. We've got the Stoptech lines in place. Just got to run them properly once we get them tightened down, and I'll get the torque specs for that. Okay, now the really straightforward part. You put the pads in, slide the locking pins in, and you're done. I'll link the parts down below to the pads I'm using, but it's very straightforward. There's no wrong side on these pads. I'm gonna put a little bit of the lube on the back just so they're not squeaky. Just a little caliper grease, brake grease on the back, just so that the pads don't make a bunch of squeaky noises. Just slides right in like that. So simple. And then you got a bag of hardware. And then these are the dowel pins. So these go in and there's a little cotter pin that sits on the end. So you just want to feed the dowel through the hole in the front of the caliper. And just wiggle the pads till they come up into spots. And then they should just line right up with the exit on the back. A lot of people say you want to put the top cotter pin in first, because then you put the spring clip in after. So the way this works is the cotter pin drops in the hole, and then it grabs it. So yeah, throw the cotter pin on the back. Just orient the hole in the back so that it gets in. And then you take the spring clip, and you want to, these are what keeps the pads apart. So you want to rest this on the top bar up here, fit these in between, that rests like that. And you want to drop this down in below so that it sits under this lip here. Then, so you've got the spring clip in, and then you take the bottom dowel and then you just feed it in through the holes. Everything should line up. You want to make sure that the spring clip holds onto that bar. Push the dowel through, just give the pads a little wiggle. Everything should line up. It should pop out the other side of the caliper. Like that. And then you take the other cotter pin, you line it up right in there, and give it a push. And there you go. There you have it. Okay. So brakes are in. That's great. So that side is sealed off. So this side is essentially complete. We just have to bleed this side, and then we will repeat the same thing on the other side and then put the wheels back on. But there's the new kit set up and ready to go. And there we have it, the 2019 to 2023 big brake kit on my truck is now installed. I've got the Stoptech lines in there, freshly painted calipers, much larger rotors. Everything's been bled out. I'm just gonna throw my wheels on and take it for a test drive around the block. Sorry for the funky camera angle, but just doing a test drive. And yeah, there was a wobbling on the old brakes. That is gone. I think I need to bleed the system a little bit more, but holy cow, does it stop hard now. Like it pulls you out of the seat stopping hard, which is so nice. I always felt from the factory the brakes on these things were a little weak, so now we have 15-year newer brakes in the front, and I got so lucky with my rim size. There is absolutely no interference. I just did a bunch of like 50 mile an hour slams on the brakes. Like here, I'll jam on the brakes now. That was from 30 miles an hour down to nothing. So it's working. I'm gonna bleed it out a little bit. The rotors and the pads will need to bed in a little bit. So a couple more days of driving and then a rebleed in a few days just to make sure any air bubbles get burped out of the system. And yeah, I think it's a full success, but it's such an awesome upgrade because it's all factory stuff. It bolts in. These trucks truly are Lego vehicles, man, because it's $5 worth of spacers and you can have 4 piston calipers on the front of your GMT800 truck. I'll put a full description in the link down below. I'm gonna do a proper outro on this video, but I just wanted to catch some in-car. I'm gonna jam on the brakes again. I'm doing just under 40 miles an hour, 60 kilometers an hour. Oh, there's a car coming. Don't want to do it quite yet. And then, all right, and 60 kilometers an hour and full on the brakes. Oh my God, yep. Okay, well, I'll film a proper outro, but yes, success. Okay, so after a few days of driving, it is an absolutely amazing upgrade. I just gave them a quick rinse because it is fall and wheels are a little dirty, but you can see the 4 piston calipers sitting in there nicely. Brakes are doing their thing. It fills out your wheels nicely. You have to run 17s, guys. Don't make the mistake of thinking you can fit them on anything smaller. Also, just check your offset and wheel spacing. You need a minimum of additional 17 inches of space. I got plenty of space between my calipers. I got really lucky with my spoke design. But it is an amazing upgrade for any GMT800 truck if you can fit it behind your wheels. 17 inches or bigger. That's a pretty common size on these trucks and you can get away with them. But just do your measurements. And one last point is the place you want to measure from is right here on the caliper to the face of the disc. You need 17 more inches out. Sorry, you need 17 more millimeters towards you. So this is the important part where people get clearance. Sometimes people will machine this ridge off depending on the design of their wheels. Thank you so much for watching my video. Ask any questions in the comments down below. And I really appreciate you watching and supporting the channel. Have a great day and thanks for watching.